Every single night, millions of people over 60 wake up to use the bathroom. Not once, not twice, 3, 4, sometimes 5 times. And almost every one of them has been told the same thing. It's just age. Let me be very clear with you. That is not the full truth. And for a lot of people, it's the reason this problem never gets fixed. Because what I see in clinical practice is this. People change everything they're told to change. They drink less water at night. They take bladder supplements. They even go on medication. And yet they're still waking up at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning. So the question becomes, if you're doing everything right, why is this still happening? I'm Dr. Olivia Kesson, cardiovascular surgeon for over 20 years, and I want to show you something most people are never told, even after years of dealing with this. In the majority of cases, your bladder is not the problem, which means everything you've been targeting may be aimed at the wrong place. Now think about your night for a second. You finally fall asleep. Not light sleep, but that deep, heavy sleep your body actually needs. And then it happens. That signal. At first, you try to ignore it. You turn over. You adjust your position. You tell yourself, just go back to sleep. But it doesn't go away. It builds until you have no choice. You get up, walk to the bathroom. Half awake, eyes barely open. You go, you come back, you lie down again. And now something else happens. You're awake, your mind starts moving. You think about things you weren't thinking about before. And even if you fall back asleep, it's lighter. Then it happens again. Second time. Third time. And by morning, you're not rested. You're functioning. But you're not restored. Now here's why this matters more than people realize. Because every time you wake up like that, your body shifts out of deep sleep. Your heart rate rises. Your blood pressure increases. And over time, this starts to affect more than just your sleep. It affects your energy, your memory, your cardiovascular system. And this is why I don't treat this as a small issue. Because it isn't. Now, most people walk into a doctor's office and say, "Doc, I think it's my bladder." Or, "It must be my prostate." And sometimes, yes, those things can play a role. But in a large number of cases, especially after 60, that's not where the story starts. Because the body has a very specific system designed for nighttime. At night, your brain releases a hormone called antidiuretic hormone. Its job is simple. Tell your kidneys to slow down, reduce urine production, allow your body to rest. That's why a healthy system can sleep 6, 7, even 8 hours without needing to wake up. So when you are waking up multiple times, that system is not working the way it should. And that is your first real clue. Because now we're no longer talking about just a bladder. We're talking about a system imbalance. Now here's the part that changes everything. In medicine, waking up at night to urinate has a name. It's called nocturia. And it's not defined as normal aging. Even waking up once regularly is considered a signal. Twice or more, that's a pattern. And patterns mean something is driving it. So instead of asking, "How do I stop waking up?" the better question is, what is actually causing my body to produce urine at night? Because once you answer that, everything becomes clearer. Now let me give you a simple way to think about this. Imagine your smoke alarm goes off in the middle of the night. You can cover it. You can silence it. You can even remove the battery. But none of that changes the fire. That's exactly how most people approach this. They try to silence the signal without finding the source. And the truth is, in a large number of cases, your bladder is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. It's not malfunctioning, it's responding to something happening elsewhere in your body. And if you don't identify that you can treat this for years and never actually fix it. So before we go any further, I need you to do one thing. Don't assume the cause, because the next part is where most people finally realize they've been looking in the wrong place the entire time. Now, here's where almost everyone makes the mistake. They assume, if I'm waking up at night, it must be my bladder. But clinically, that's not how this works, because two people can both wake up 3 times a night and have completely different causes. And if the cause is different, the solution has to be different. This is why so many people try something and nothing changes. So let's simplify this. There are 3 main patterns I see, especially in people over 60. And once you recognize which one you are, everything starts to make sense. Type 1. You're producing too much urine all day. This is the first group. These are the people who say, I'm going all the time. Not just at night, during the day too, every few hours, sometimes even more. And when they go, it's a full amount, not a few drops, a real volume. Now this is important because if you're producing a lot during the day and a lot at night, then your body is simply making too much urine overall. That's a different problem. Sometimes it's fluid intake. People are drinking constantly thinking more water is always better. But sometimes it's something deeper. Blood sugar issues, hormonal regulation, kidney signaling. Because when blood sugar runs high, it actually pulls water into the urine. So your body starts losing more fluid, even if you didn't drink more. Now here's the key signal. If you're going frequently, both day and night, with large amounts each time, this is not just a nighttime issue. It's a whole body production issue. And treating the bladder alone won't fix it. Type 2. You're fine during the day. But night is a different story. Now this is the group I see the most, especially after 60. These people say, I'm okay during the day. They go every few hours. Nothing unusual. But the moment they lie down, everything changes. One trip, then another, then another. And here's the key detail. Each time the bladder is actually full. Not urgency. Not irritation. A real, full amount. This is where people get confused, because they think, if my bladder is full, then it must be the bladder. But that's not what's happening. This pattern tells us something very specific. Your body is producing too much urine at night. Not all day, just at night. Which means something is shifting when you lie down. And this is the group where people say, I barely drank anything. I don't understand where it's coming from. That confusion is the clue. Because now we're not dealing with intake. We're dealing with timing. And that leads us to the mechanism which we'll get into next. But before we go there, there's one more type. Type 3. Urgent, but very little comes out. This one feels very different. These people don't wake up because the bladder is full. They wake up because it feels urgent. Strong urge, sudden, hard to ignore. They rush to the bathroom and then, almost nothing. A few drops. Then 30 to 40 minutes. Later, it happens again. That pattern points to something else entirely. Now we're talking about bladder sensitivity, overactive bladder, prostate-related obstruction, irritation, or inflammation. This is the true bladder problem group, where the bladder is signaling too early before it's actually full. So now let's put this together. If you are going frequently all day and night, type 1. Fine during the day, full bladder at night, type 2. urgent feeling, but very little output. Type 3. Three completely different mechanisms. Three completely different solutions. Now here's the part most people never hear. If you are in type 2, the most common group after 60, your bladder is not failing. It is being overloaded. That's the difference. And once you see that, everything changes. Because now you stop asking, how do I calm my bladder? And you start asking, why is my body sending so much fluid there at night? That question is where the real answer begins. And in the next part, I'm going to show you the exact mechanism. Why fluid builds during the day and suddenly floods your system at night. Now, we get to the part that surprises almost everyone. If you're in that second group, fine during the day but waking up with a full bladder at night, this is where the real explanation begins. And it has almost nothing to do with your bladder. It has to do with where fluid goes during the day and what happens when you lie down. Let me show you this in the simplest way possible. All day long, you are upright, sitting, standing, walking. And because of that, gravity is constantly pulling fluid downward. Blood, lymph, fluid between your cells. All of it slowly shifts toward your lower body. Now when you're younger, your body handles this very well. Your veins are tight. Your valves close properly. Your muscles push fluid back up efficiently. So even though gravity is working against you, your circulation keeps everything balanced. But after 60, that system is not as strong as it used to be. Veins become more relaxed. Valves don't seal as tightly. Muscle activity decreases, especially if you sit more than you used to. So what starts to happen? A small amount of fluid begins to leak out of circulation and settle into your tissues, usually in your lower legs. Not enough to look dramatic, but enough to matter. You might notice your socks leave a mark. Your ankles feel slightly tight. Your legs feel heavier at the end of the day. Most people ignore it because it seems minor. But physiologically, that fluid is now sitting outside your bloodstream. And here's the critical point. Your kidneys cannot process what they cannot see. They only filter fluid that is circulating in your blood. So during the day, that extra fluid just sits there. Now everything changes at night. The moment you lie down, gravity disappears from the equation. Your legs are now level with your heart, and that fluid that slowly collected over 10, 12, 14 hours starts moving back into circulation. At first, gradually, then more steadily. And as it returns, your total blood volume increases. Now, from your body's perspective, this is a problem, because suddenly there's more fluid in the system than before. So your heart reacts. It releases a signal, a hormone, that tells your kidneys, remove the excess, and your kidneys respond immediately. They increase filtration. They push out sodium. They push out water. And that fluid becomes urine, which fills your bladder, which wakes you up. Now here's the part most people never connect. This process doesn't happen once. Because the fluid stored in your legs doesn't return all at once. It keeps shifting for hours. So even if you empty your bladder at 2 in the morning, more fluid is still moving, which is why you wake up again and again. Now stop for a second and think about what this means. You could drink almost nothing at night and still produce large amounts of urine. Because you're not just processing what you drank, you're processing what your body stored earlier. That's the shift. And once people understand this, they say the same thing. So it's not my bladder. Exactly. Your bladder is doing its job. It's receiving what your kidneys are producing, and your kidneys are responding to what your circulation is delivering. That's the chain. Legs to circulation, to heart, to kidneys, to bladder. Break that down, and the problem starts to make sense. Now there's another layer that can make this even stronger: sleep. Some people, especially after 60, have a condition called sleep apnea, where breathing briefly stops during sleep, even for a few seconds. And when that happens, your body sends signals that increase urine production. So now you have two forces working together: fluid returning from your legs and hormonal signals increasing kidney activity, which makes nighttime urination even more frequent. And again, the bladder is still not the cause. It's responding to instructions. Now here's why this matters so much. Because if the problem shows up at night, it didn't start at night. It started during the day, which means the solution is not just what do I do when I wake up. The real question is, what can I change before I go to bed so this doesn't happen in the first place? That's where the control is. And that's also why so many people struggle, because they focus on drinking less water, taking supplements, trying to hold it, while the real driver is still happening underneath. So in the next part, I'm going to show you something very simple: how to check if this is actually happening in your body without any machines, without any lab tests. Because once you confirm the pattern, you can start correcting it. At this point, you might be thinking, this sounds like me. But how do I know for sure? That's the right question. Because before you try to fix anything, you need to confirm what's actually happening in your body. And the good news is, you don't need a scan. You don't need blood work. You don't need a specialist appointment. You can get a very strong answer in just a few minutes. There are two simple checks I use with patients. And if you do these properly, they tell you almost everything you need to know about this pattern. Let's start with the first one: the hidden fluid check. Sit down somewhere comfortable. Expose your lower leg. Look at the area between your knee and your ankle. Find the front of your shin bone. Now take your thumb and press firmly into that area, about 4 to 6 inches above your ankle. Hold that pressure for about 10 to 15 seconds. Then remove your thumb and look closely. This is the key moment. Does the skin bounce back immediately? Or does it leave a small dent that stays there for a few seconds? If it returns right away, that's a good sign. It means there isn't significant fluid sitting in the tissue. But if you see a visible indentation, or you can feel a slight hollow that slowly fills back in, that's called pitting edema. And that is not random. It means fluid has been sitting in your tissues during the day, not circulating, not being filtered, just stored. And if it's stored during the day, it has to go somewhere at night. This is exactly the fluid that returns to your bloodstream when you lie down. And if this is happening in your body, it strongly supports that your nighttime urination is not coming from your bladder. It's coming from fluid redistribution. Now here's where it gets more interesting, because one test alone is helpful, but two together make it very clear. The second check is the day versus night urine pattern. This takes a little more effort, but it's extremely powerful. Pick a day when you're at home. Use any container with volume markings. A measuring cup is enough. And track your urine output for a full 24 hours. Separate it into daytime and nighttime. And make sure you include the very first urination in the morning as part of nighttime output. At the end of the day, add everything up. Now here's the number that matters: if more than 1/3 of your total urine is happening at night. That is not normal. That pattern has a name: nocturnal polyuria. And it tells us something very specific. Your kidneys are doing too much of their work at night, which means your body is shifting fluid at the wrong time, not during the day, but after you lie down. Now pause for a second and connect this. If you have a dent in your leg when you press it, and you're producing large amounts of urine at night, that's not a coincidence. That's a pattern. Fluid is collecting during the day and being released at night. And that brings us back to the most important point. Your bladder is not failing. It is being filled. There's a difference. Now let me sharpen this even more. If you're waking up with a strong urge, but only passing a small amount, that's a different pattern. That points more toward bladder sensitivity or storage problems. But if you're waking up and passing a full amount each time, that is not a storage problem. That is a supply problem. Your body is sending too much fluid to the bladder at night. And once you see that distinction, everything becomes clearer, because now you're no longer guessing, you're identifying. Now here's the part most people never get told: if this pattern is happening in your body. The most important time is not 3 in the morning, it's the hours before you go to bed. Because by the time you wake up, the process is already in motion. Which means if you want to stop waking up, you have to change what happens before sleep. And this is where most people get it wrong. They focus on drinking less water, but they completely ignore something much more powerful: what they eat in the evening. Because certain foods don't just affect digestion, they change how your body holds and releases fluid hours later. And that's exactly what we're going to break down next. What you're eating at night that is quietly forcing your kidneys to work while you're trying to sleep. And why even small habits can keep this cycle going without you realizing it. Now, here's where this becomes very real for most people. Because even if fluid is building up during the day, even if it's shifting back at night, what you do in the evening can either calm that process or make it much worse. And this is exactly where I see the same pattern over and over again in people over 60. They tell me, "I barely drink anything at night. I'm being careful. I stopped tea. I cut back on water." And yet they're still waking up 2, 3, 4 times. So the question is, if you're not drinking much, why is your bladder still filling? The answer is this: it's not just about how much you drink. It's about what your body is being forced to process later while you're asleep. And there are 3 major triggers that quietly drive this. The first is hidden salt. Most people think salt only comes from what they add to food, but the majority of sodium comes from processed foods: cheese, bread, cured meats, packaged snacks, sauces, foods that don't even taste, very salty. Now here's what happens. You eat these foods in the evening. Your body senses the sodium, and it immediately holds on to water to balance it. So instead of releasing fluid, it stores it in your bloodstream, in your tissues, including your legs. Then later, when you're asleep, your kidneys begin removing that sodium. And sodium pulls water with it. So now your body has to push out more fluid at night, which fills your bladder, which wakes you up. So you didn't drink too much. You created a situation where your body had to flush out excess sodium while you were trying to sleep. The second trigger is evening sugar. And this one is even more deceptive because it feels harmless. A small dessert, a piece of fruit, tea with something sweet. But metabolically, this creates a delayed reaction. First, your blood sugar rises. Then your body releases insulin, and insulin tells your kidneys to hold on to sodium and water. So fluid is retained. Then a few hours later, your blood sugar drops, and your body shifts into release mode. Now your kidneys begin pushing fluid out, and that shift often happens right in the middle of the night. So what you get is retention first, release later, and that later becomes your 2 or 3 a.m. wake up. Again, not because you drank too much, but because your body is now processing what you ate earlier. The third trigger is alcohol. This is one of the most misunderstood habits I see. Many people say a small drink helps them sleep, and it can make you fall asleep faster. But physiologically, it does the opposite of what your body needs overnight. Alcohol blocks the hormone that tells your kidneys to slow down, the same hormone that allows you to sleep for hours without needing to urinate. When that signal is blocked, your kidneys keep filtering at a higher rate. At the same time, alcohol makes your sleep lighter and more fragmented. So now you have more urine production and a lower threshold to wake up. That combination is exactly what leads to repeated nighttime trips. You fall asleep quickly, but you don't stay asleep deeply, and your bladder keeps filling underneath. Now here's why this becomes more significant after 60. Because the systems that regulate fluid balance are not as flexible as they used to be. Your kidneys respond differently. Your blood vessels respond differently. Hormonal signals are not as strong or as stable. So the same habits that didn't affect you much before now create a noticeable effect. And the connection is not obvious because the cause and the result are hours apart. You eat something at 7 p.m. and you wake up at 2 a.m. Most people never connect those two moments, but they are directly linked. So instead of thinking I need to drink less at night, the better question is, what is my body being forced to process while I'm asleep? Because that's the real driver. And once you reduce these triggers, you often see something very interesting. The number of times you wake up starts to drop, not because your bladder changed, but because the workload changed. Now we bring this all together, because understanding the pattern and removing the triggers is only part of the solution. The real breakthrough comes when you change when your body processes fluid. And that's exactly what I'm going to show you next. The simple routine that shifts this entire process out of the night and back into the evening where it belongs. Now we bring everything together. Because at this point, you understand something most people never get told. This is not just a bladder problem. It's a timing problem. It's a fluid distribution problem. And more importantly, it's something you can actually change starting tonight. So instead of trying to control what happens at 3 in the morning, we shift what happens before you go to bed. That's where the leverage is. That's where the control is. Step 1 starts the moment you wake up. Before coffee, before breakfast, take 30 seconds. Stand up, rise slightly onto your toes, and let your heels drop back down. Do this 20 to 30 times. What you're doing is activating the pump in your legs. Those small movements push fluid back into circulation early in the day, so it doesn't sit and collect for hours. It seems simple, but over time, it changes how much fluid builds up by evening. Step 2 is what you do during the day. Avoid long, uninterrupted sitting. Every 1 to 2 hours, stand up, walk, move your legs. Even a minute or two matters, because every time your muscles contract, they help push fluid upward. If you sit all day, fluid settles. If you move, fluid circulates. That one difference alone can reduce how much your body has to process later at night. Step 3 is fluid timing. Most people drink very little during the day and then drink more in the evening. That pattern works against you. Shift your fluid intake earlier. Drink most of your fluids before late afternoon. Not zero at night, but less. Because your body needs time to process fluid before you go to sleep, not while you're trying to stay asleep. Step 4 is evening control. This is where you remove the triggers we talked about. Reduce processed, salty foods. Avoid late sugar. Be careful with alcohol. Because these don't just affect digestion, they change how your body holds and releases fluid hours later. What you eat at 7 p.m. can still be affecting your kidneys at 2 a.m. Now, here is the most important step, the one that changes everything for many people. About 1 to 2 hours before bed, lie down and elevate your legs. Put them on a chair, a couch, or against a wall, slightly above the level of your heart. Stay there for about 15 to 20 minutes. Relax. Breathe normally. Let gravity work in your favor for once. What's happening is simple. You're bringing that stored fluid back into circulation while you are still awake. Your kidneys start processing it. Your bladder begins to fill. And then you go to the bathroom before bed. You're not stopping the process. You're moving it earlier. That's the shift. That's why this works. After that, keep the rest of your night calm. No large drinks right before bed. No heavy late meals. Let your body transition into rest mode, because now your kidneys have already done most of their work. Now think about what you've just done. Instead of being woken up multiple times, you've reduced the amount of fluid your body needs to process during the night. You've changed the timing. And when you change the timing, the symptom starts to change. This is not about perfection. You don't need to do everything at once. Even 1 or 2 of these changes can reduce how often you wake up. But when you do them consistently, the effect becomes very clear. Fewer interruptions, longer stretches of sleep, better energy in the morning. And here's the most important part. This is not about fighting your body. Your body is not broken. It's trying to protect your circulation, your heart, and your balance. Once you understand that, you stop working against it and start working with it. If you are still waking up 2 or 3 times a night, don't ignore it. Don't just accept it as aging, because in many cases, it isn't age, it's a pattern. And patterns can be changed. Most people will keep guessing. They'll try random supplements, cut water, and hope something works. But now you know exactly what's happening inside your body. And once you see it clearly, you can change it deliberately. So tonight, don't try to force sleep. Change the system that's waking you up. I'm Dr. Olivia Kesson, and after more than 20 years in cardiovascular medicine, I can tell you this with confidence. The body almost always gives you signals before something becomes serious. The key is understanding what those signals actually mean.